There's a room in Denver where 2 teenage girls were murdered 50 years ago.
50 years ago. The case was investigated, evidence was collected, and then nothing.
No suspect, no arrest, no justice, no peace. Said the Marleys were dead to begin with.
Is that the beginning? Are we covering a Christmas carol?
I don't think so. But I think this one is pretty spooky too. So welcome anyone and all one. Anyone who's been here since we started, got on halfway through, or just here. Welcome to a really great episode of Horror Whiskey Company.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be the
greatest.
I'm your great friend, Jamie. And that's Peter. He forgot his name.
It's me. It's Donald Trump. I'm the greatest on the podcast. Okay. Yeah, that's really bad. Bad one.
This is a really bad Trump impersonation. Like, I feel like you've never heard him.
What? I'd like to see your impersonation, but not right now because we have business to take care of, dude.
We have things to attend to. So grab your drinks, unless you're Peter who lies to you and doesn't drink now. We're about
That's not true. We were on a break.
We have a great, never been solved true crime story. It's solved, in my opinion, by paranormal investigators. Ooh. So please grab your favorite accoutrement in a chalice. And then, like we always say, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Like we know, if we get to 1,000 followers by next year, Peter will only drink Cosmos for a year on this podcast.
On the show. I can't drink anything else. I don't really like Cosmos, so...
Who likes Cosmos?
Samantha and Deborah. No, I can't. I don't know any. I didn't watch that show.
And Deborah. Like from Will and Grace. So
I don't know. I just said Deborah. I don't know.
I'm going to start this off. There's a room in Denver where 2 teenage girls were murdered 50 years ago.
50 years ago. The case was investigated, evidence was collected, and then nothing.
No suspect, no arrest, no justice, no peace. Fuck the police.
But according to the people who stayed there since, the girls didn't leave.
Guests have been reporting knocking, doors rattling in the middle of the night. A constant feeling that someone is still watching from that room.
And then there's this. Some investigators claim the girls didn't just stay behind, they took justice into their own hands. They claim the spirits of the girls actually named their killer.
Tonight's story is a true crime story, and like I said before, it's also a paranormal story. What we're calling this is true paranormal.
True paranormal. But most importantly, this is a story about what happens when justice never comes and how, when answers disappear, people start looking for meaning wherever they can find it.
All right, you beautiful MFers. I'm going to tell you, this is the story of the Lumber Baron Inn.
Cheers, my guy.
Cheers.
Ooh. Yeah, can we get some like music in that in post?
No.
Oh. Thanks for the honesty. God, I'm hydrated.
I have to pay for music or make it, because if you just use ones from CapCut or YouTube, then it only works on those streaming services, and you can't use it on anything else.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, can't you just like behind it? Like, can't you just go in and just be like, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Short answer is no. We're not putting any sounds in. The Marleys were dead to begin with. Shut up. Let's get this started.
Jamie, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking Murphy's Irish Stout.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I also have a couple crisp lagers because I'm out of Murphy's.
Okay.
I just ripped a shot of whiskey.
Is it called crisp lager?
Yeah.
You still drinking Four Noses whiskey?
Yeah. It's actually bourbon.
Okay. I actually this evening am changing up a little bit. I've got that hazy NA from Athletic Brewing called Free Wave. Just about done with dry January. I'm going to make it through. I know you're upset about it. I'm upset about it. We can all be upset about it. But it doesn't change the fact that it's happening.
So if everyone in the comments can just say the meanest things possible about Peter being a quitter, and then I'll relay it to him, that'd be awesome.
Here's the deal. If we hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of January, I will absolutely quit dry January immediately and only drink Cosmos for the rest of the year, this year.
But if we make 1,000 by next January, you'll only drink Cosmos for that year. Let's get into the story. And let me tell you how we got here. I'd like to say I was doing a lot of research when I really
Let me guess, you watched a documentary.
I was watching Netflix and I saw something come up called 28 Years Haunted.
Days.
And I was like, 28 Days Haunted. I'm sorry. I'm still in the mode of 28
We've been talking about 28 years later. Yep.
28 Days Haunted. And it is a reality TV show about paranormal investigators. And it's has to do with Ed and Lorraine Warren said that it takes 28 days to fully investigate an entire paranormal case. So what they did is they took 3 different groups of paranormal investigators and they threw them into 3 different situations that were unsolved. And they had these people figured out. And this one hit me because it's close to where we all lived. This is in Denver. I've never heard about it. I've never heard about these murders before. And so I reached out to Peter. I'm like, dude, have you heard anything about this before? Because this is completely news to me. And then it spiraled into both of us being like, let's dig in.
Yeah.
So this is where we're at.
When you first told me about it, I was like, okay, this sounds like every other like haunted house paranormal investigation story I've ever heard. Now, I did think that it was interesting that 1, it takes place in Denver and we both hadn't heard about it being from Colorado. 2, I did like the idea of the 28-day cycle of a haunting where it takes that long to really start to get I can't remember how exactly they phrased it, but like the veil starts to thin as the closer you get to this 28-day cycle. So these people were like locked inside this place, which is not anything new. People have been like, we're getting locked in for the night. But for 28 days is a super long time. Also, they went in like, according to the show, also, all of this is according to the show, completely blind, which I also thought was interesting. They didn't really know the backstory on the place that they're going to investigate. They just went there and they're like, hey, figure out what you can figure out, which I thought was interesting. So we didn't really ever talk about this, but I ended up watching The Conjuring Last Rites. Did you ever get to see that?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Well, there's this guy that shows up in The Conjuring Last Rites named Tony, right? And he's the Warren's daughter's boyfriend. Now, this guy is the guy that puts on this show 28 Days Haunted. But it should also be mentioned that this guy is the same one who also took the Annabelle doll on tour. So
this is the brother or the father-in-law, or what did it say? This is the
son-in-law.
Son-in-law. He was the one that took
Warrens.
Annabelle on tour. And he's also the one that put this show on. All right.
Yep.
Makes complete sense.
For sure. He's definitely getting as much out of that Warren name as he can.
Well, does he own a lot of the estate? Did everything go to him?
I think the estate is his, and maybe he sold off parts of it. I don't know a lot about him.
He sold the estate is now owned by Matt Rife.
Yeah. So but I don't know what if that entails all of the things, or if that just includes the Warrens' home, or what exactly was involved with that sale. I'm not totally sure, but this show takes place prior to that.
Yes,
this came out in 2023. Yeah.
Yes.
But anyways, I thought that this was an interesting story that you were telling me, because the hook of what we wanted to talk about wasn't necessarily that there was this paranormal investigation. We were going to look into that. It's that there's this case, particularly in the Denver story, because like Jamie mentioned, there's 3 separate places that are being investigated, but there is this unsolved cold case where these girls were murdered and there's never even been an arrest in the murders for these girls. Then I had this strange realization that maybe the paranormal angle exists only because there was no justice to this story. The ghosts are almost maybe even being fabricated because they are looking for answers somewhere. So they make up the fact that ghosts are there. I'm not totally sure at this point. We're just having the initial conversation about it. But as we move through the show, I'll get a little clearer on that.
Hooked by the ghosts, stayed for the true crime.
There we go. That's kind of what happened, actually.
It's exactly what happened. It's exactly what drew my attention.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, here's another weird paranormal. I just throw this shit on when I don't want to fully pay attention. I'm like, all right, let's watch another paranormal investigation. And this one, literally, I watched all the episodes in a row.
You were bought into this?
I was. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I honestly looked into this really deep before I even got into that. But before we even get to that, why do these unsolved cases intrigue us more than solved cases that we totally understand? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Because we think we can help solve them.
We want to be important to the story. You think that's
still a mystery? You personally want to help figure this out for these people.
That makes sense.
That's my thoughts.
I like that.
That's why I get excited. I'm I love Unsolved Mysteries. The show.
For sure, dude.
As a kid, I loved Unsolved Mysteries. I loved that Netflix also brought it back. I've watched every single episode.
I have not, but I get your sentiment for sure.
I wish I could say that I've tried to do research to help solve that, but no, next one.
Man, that was a great story. On to the next. Ain't got time for that.
Unsolved mystery. I want to hear another one.
I love being lost in mystery. I guess that's the big thing, right?
Yes.
Exactly. We aren't necessarily hooked by the story. We're hooked by the lack of answers.
It's just we fear and are excited by the unknown.
Yep.
Is what I think. We don't know what's going to happen.
And we're fascinated by it.
Yeah, exactly.
We decide to just dig in headfirst into this thing. And pretty much we go where we normally go with to start. At least I jumped immediately to going to podcasts and YouTube, stuff like that, which was really strange because in the last, since we've been doing the show, we've done not necessarily all high profile cases, but at least high profile enough stuff where there's a lot of information that can be gained from articles, other podcasts, YouTube videos and stuff like that, specifically ones that I don't have to watch a ton because I'm a busy guy. So I'm usually listening to stuff. And this story was surprisingly, for having this Netflix documentary, featuring this, there was really not a ton of information, and it's not even a new documentary. So I was maybe even more intrigued and excited to jump into this because I had to I couldn't just use stuff that has been already discussed and kind of parse through that, we had to like kind of get into the source material of police records and stuff like that. At this early phase, the goal was just to find the timeline and the basic facts, which for the most part with this story all had the same kind of very typical story where we have two unfortunate women, and there's a troubled girl who finds herself in a bad situation and loses her life because of that. Do you think that these stories that we tell ourselves that are repeated over and over again, like these tropes, I guess I would say, make them feel more true, or do we kind of tune them down a little bit because we've already heard this story before, kind of thing?
I think it's definitely tuned down. Like, specifically in this one, I feel like every single time I read something, like there was multiple times where the names were mixed up, the names were spelled wrong, the ages were not right.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, I thought about like Tom Petty, where it's like, don't try to bore us, go straight to the chorus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically they're just sloppily writing the story of these two girls being murdered so they can get to the paranormal part.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, and that's kind of, I completely agree. I think that because these, like the reason why this story isn't more known, like I feel like you and I should have heard of this story before, but I think the reason we haven't is because it's kind of the same story we hear a lot in true crime where, like I said, girls in bad, like unfortunate girls in bad situations that get taken advantage of.
In the 70s. Shall we say
yeah, in the 70s as well, for sure. In
no
the hippie
technology
era.
or anything else for people to be saved or found.
Yep. So with that being said, let's jump straight into the official version that everyone repeats. Now, this is the same story across all of these initial investigations I found between other podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff like that. So pretty much we have these two girls and they are found dead in this room at the Lumber Mill Hotel, known as the Valentine Suite later. Mm-hmm. The first one is strangled. The second one is shot. There's no suspect. The case goes cold, and all of a sudden, ghosts start popping up at this place, and it turns into two girls, one room, no suspect, boom, haunted house. The story is simple and repeatable. It fits perfectly into the true crime, and then gets more interesting, and they give it this little extra oomph by adding in the paranormal. But, like Jamie mentioned, there's some small consistencies showing up. We have weird, like the dates aren't consistent on when the girls were killed or found. The sourcing of the material is really vague. A lot of like newspaper journalism at that time gets things wrong, whereas some are like making wildly confident claims that some girls were assaulted, like one of the girls was assaulted or was a mother, and the other one was there with her boyfriend or was there to help her move, kind of situation. All these things were really gray areas, and some were made as fact and some were like, I don't know, I heard this. We have a whole bunch of stuff that like doesn't really get cleaned up. But why do we think that in this case, like the simple story spreads faster than an accurate one?
Well, you think it paints a perfect picture of, like you said earlier, like a cut and paste true crime story. Like you have Kara, which is labeled the runaway, the astray, like young girl that wants
in
to
a bad
make it
situation.
Yeah. And then you have Marianne, who was just wrong place at the wrong time.
Do you think that's like lazy for people to do that? Or do we kind of see that this story sort of fits that way? How does like making a story so cookie cutter, how does that pull us out of like getting answers, I guess?
Well, it kind of seems like it was a game of telephone for me. It's like,
sure.
You know what I mean? Like in the 70s, like, did you hear Kara, Mara, like this girl was 14 and they got killed. Like, oh no, I heard she was 18 and this happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I heard she was a runaway, but like actually she like moved out from her parents and still was very kind of close to her parents, but just chose to live in this place irregardless.
Right.
Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Yeah.
I think like just like labeling it makes it lazy. Like it's like lazy to just have like Kara be this person and Marianne be this person and like not really do a lot of investigation, to where we kind of lose focus on the girls, and then all of a sudden we're trying to find or like put new energy into it. So we create this story about the house and the room that the girls are in to give us like to get us fired up again to find some information about this story. I just thought that was interesting. But let's go back, because as we're saying, if we just paint these girls as these roles, we kind of lose who they are. So I think before we get to the girls, we need to talk about the place, because for whatever reason, the place becomes the reason that we're even having this discussion today, because it turns into this huge haunted house story. So the Lumber Mill Inn was built in 1890 by John Moat. Now, he is I believe, Norwegian immigrant to Denver. And originally this massive 8,000 square foot mansion is built as a pretty much testament to his own wealth. He is a lumber importer. And so every room in the mansion is a different wood. Since he's like a lumber baron, we have oak and sycamore and mahogany and all these other different woods. And so I thought that's like a really cool thing. Another feature that made it stand out was it had private bathrooms, telephones on every floor. And this was like really weird watching it in the 28 Days Haunted, but there's a ballroom on the third floor of the mansion. And I think that's like the weirdest thing in the entire series was this ballroom up there. It made no sense. And how they got there, like the staircase is like this big. How the fuck are you going to host a party up there?
It kind of reminded me of Annabelle.
I could see that.
Where they had that small walk to that theater.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Abigail, not Annabelle.
Abigail, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sorry.
It's okay. I think we did it during that episode too. So it's no big deal. We're just interchangeably using Abigail and Annabelle. We apologize.
So this house was definitely like him showing off. He was like boasting his chest. He's like, hey, like Peter said, like, you like Cherrywood? My first floor, this is what I do with Cherrywood.
Oh, head to the cherry
You
room.
like oak? Look at this. So this was him not only like bragging about how rich he was bragging about his craftsmanship.
It's like a status symbol to him. He pretty much wanted to feel important. Now, what is a bummer is that in 1893, the silver crash, don't know much about that, but it's important, changes everything for John Moat. And the family loses like a ton of their fortune. They end up relocating to California, and the house kind of falls apart. Obviously, there's no one living there. And then they sell it to some guy who pretty much is like a landlord. And the house begins a functional decay. The rooms all become subdivided. So it's not one giant mansion like for one person to live in. And the purposes change. It becomes apartments, like tenement style housing by the mid 20th century. And at the same time, maintenance continues to decline. Now, by the late 1960s, it's tough to tell the sourcing on this, between 12 and 20 units for rent. It's super cheap. And because it's super cheap and it's in a little bit of like a tougher neighborhood in Denver at this point, there's a lot of like transient tenants coming and going. There's no like obviously like security or anything at this place. It's just a bunch of rooms in this giant mansion. And while that sounds kind of weird, the place was built with there were bathrooms that the people would share, but every room has its own sink and like its own, it's kind of like self-contained in each room. So it didn't necessarily feel super weird to have each tenant have their own like bedroom / like, I call it like a flat pretty much in each room. Here's something to consider though. Buildings don't fall apart all at once. They kind of erode over time. And I thought that was like a really interesting thing to think of as this house that started from this huge grand testimony to this guy's wealth being turned into transients and like tenement housing pretty much. Is this like the perfect fucking like beginning to a horror story?
Yeah, over time, like literally, like you could write a great movie about someone that was full of wealth and everything just completely fell apart in the end.
It's like very like Edgar Allan Poe or something like that, or like
exactly.
Fall of House Usher, like where everything, this family rises to power and then it all just crumbles around them.
No, Fall of House Usher, it's a great example. Great job, dude. Wow.
So anyways, this is the house though. So this, we have the house going from this grandeur to pretty much becoming like a seedy, derelict type place. And this is the house as Kara and Marianne, our victims, knew it. Now, let's jump into the girls before they became primary characters in this story. For whatever reason, as we were researching this, the story always turns to the girls after the house. It's introduced in like these really specific ways, but Kara Lee Nosh is always told about first, and she is pretty much our runaway. She's living alone in a rundown building. She's often described as troubled, rebellious, kind of like a drifter. But you know what? Looking upon things, she's also, well, depending on where you ask or who you ask, 14 to 18 in 1970. So
I think officially she was
likely
16. Okay. I think she's actually 17. She's 16
I think it was
17.
But anyways, she's like a child of like the flower power, like hippie generation. So while all these like descriptors, maybe now we see these things as that, but like my guess is she was just a 17-year-old in 1970, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Just a normal kid. So why does this is a big thing? Why is the runaway like such a shortcut label in true crime?
Well, because there's no one trying to find them. I feel like it's like someone where the murderers think that they can get away with it, kind of thing. Is what I think of.
Do you think that because like, and we do see it often, do you think it's more that these things happen, like runaways are particularly vulnerable, or do you think it just makes a better story so that we hear about it more often?
I think it's kind of both.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Really, runaways probably put themselves in a lot more vulnerable situations than people.
A little more desperate. Yeah, they find themselves in tenement style housing, even though they're not even like she wasn't. Yeah, we'll get more into the fact whether or not she was or wasn't a runaway. Anyways, I completely agree with you there. Back to the story. Marianne Weaver is introduced as our second victim. Now she is framed complete like every single time as Kara's friend. She's at her house or her apartment fairly often. And like we mentioned earlier, she is the character who is at the wrong place at the wrong time in this story. Now we get this hierarchy that forms as far as who the characters in this specific true crime story are. We have Kara, who is a central figure, and Marianne, who becomes this added on victim. How stories assign importance of who the characters are and why they matter, is that like something that we have to fight against when we're researching stories like this? Or do you think that like, because I don't know, I guess my question is, does Kara necessarily equal the driving force in this? Do we see her as the compelling character, or do we just think about like, this is just the true crime story and Marianne is this side person and Kara is just our victim kind of thing? Why is it in this story particularly, like we found so much difficulty knowing who these girls were in the first place?
Because there's not a lot of information on it. And there's
just, I think just that like, time.
This is just like a fluff. There's a fluff piece to get to the other part. So more people are focused on the paranormal story of this than they are the actual murders.
Okay.
So I think it's just like get in where you fit in kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Kara happened to be 17 and she didn't live with her parents. And so they're like,
must be a runaway.
Obviously a runaway. Which, like we say, it's on document that she literally celebrated her 17th birthday with her family. So she just decided that she wanted to live alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was like, so I was going to say like the really sad thing, because like I did as much digging as like I was really able to on some kind of background information on these girls. And it's really sad because there's just really not much. And I think that's one, like a sign of the times. Too, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I think shoddy police work has a lot to do with this story.
Or they could give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, well, it's just another murder. But I don't know.
Another two girls are just fucking girls. Like, who cares?
They're just runaways. Yeah. So anyways, if we remember these girls only by the roles they played in the story, we miss who they actually were. And I wish that we had more information to give. It's just the resources just aren't there to find, which is such a bummer. On the night of October 12th, 1970, the Lumber Baron Inn was quiet. Kara was alone in her room. Now, her next door roommate, who she claims is her roommate, was out of town for the evening. So no one else is supposed to be there, and someone enters Kara's room. They don't necessarily know where this person accessed into the mansion from, and the timeline is also incredibly unclear. But what is clear is that Kara is attacked. She's strangled to death, and her body was later found naked, partially under the bed. As we're looking at this, what like intimacy does like strangling someone tell us? This is like our, psychological profile kind of thing. What does it tell us about our perpetrator, I guess I would say?
He's a fucking rapist and a piece of shit. And he's a mad, like, he literally like just wants to have control.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think strangulation is definitely not quick, but it's really personal. And I think that, we'll talk a couple different theories as we get to the end of this, but it definitely suggests that this person most likely it's a personal thing, and it's not weird, happenstance or, a mugging or something like that. You don't strangle someone if you're trying to steal their jewelry.
Also, she's found naked. Like, this is clearly thought out and sought after.
Yep.
This is someone that they were like, hey, like, I can take advantage of this woman.
I'm right there with you. Right after this happens, Marianne arrives while the killer is still there. Now, we don't exactly know because, again, we don't have a ton of sources on this, but the reason is unclear whether Marianne was there to help Kara visit. As we'll talk about later, she was planning on moving out of this place. Could have been there to help her move. But the timing is everything, because as soon as Marianne enters the bedroom, she's shot once in the head. It's quick and decisive, which is a completely different method than Kara. Jamie, what does that tell us?
That it was not planned.
Yep.
That this was something that was startled on. I assume she entered the room when said after naughty acts were happening to Kara. And so it's
okay.
Chow, yeah. Or like
just surprised and being like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Are you fuck? And like literally, like it was like take it off guard, boom, you're hit.
After Marianne's death, the killer leaves unseen, and no one, for some reason, in this mansion hears anything.
How is there no one else there?
I have no idea. This is another one of those parts of this case that is just like mind blowing. The bodies are discovered.
20, there's how many rooms? 20?
Between 12 and 20.
And no one else was there to hear a gunshot.
That's gunshot.
Crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't totally understand. It feeds a lot of conspiracy that we can kind of talk about at the end of this.
Yeah.
So the bodies are discovered on October 13th by a friend of Kara's, John Lechuga. He finds the door isn't even locked to Kara's room, so he kind of lets himself in. The lights are on. Marianne is found first because she is actually posed on the bed, and then Kara is found underneath the bed. As we talked about, Kara appears to be the primary target of this, and Marianne was likely eliminated to get rid of a witness. But that's pretty much kind of where the violence ends and we kind of get an investigation. The murders are reported on October 13th by John LeChuga, right? Denver police respond and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation also gets involved. Now, initially, this is seen as a completely solvable case. There's like a crime scene that they set up and they're processing, taking photos, statements. Neighbors are questioned. The investigation is led by Captain Art Dill. Now, from the outside, it looks completely normal, like a highly active crime scene. But some problems appear really quickly with this case. There is no clear suspect. No witnesses can provide any sightings. There's no usable description of someone, and there's no murder weapon found at the scene. Now, how early investigation, like mishaps, shape all the things that follow? Well, if we don't have, because it will be alleged that like the crime scene might not have been secured in the way that standard operating procedure would be for police. People might have just walked in and out, come and gone. And then they also may have had like compromised evidence that was either affected or destroyed in different years over the moving of the police station from this one place into a next. They had like a little fire or something that destroyed some evidence, which is why we can't do DNA testing on it now. I saw in one of the sources. Those crimes or like the claims of the police just doing a bad investigation are very difficult. We can't really like verify it, but I think we can kind of assume that we have so little information about these girls. And like, I guess as a journalist, maybe there just wasn't a huge interest in true crime, so people didn't just jump on this. I know there was a couple articles that I read through, but they just don't have much information on the girls. So why would they have a lot of information on the crime itself?
Well, there's also no internet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they're working for microfiche and newspapers.
A million of us just like obsessed with murder. There was like literally like, if you weren't in Denver or around that situation area, like you didn't hear it, and that's why it could go cold so quick.
Yeah, it's definitely like a local crime. And I don't know, maybe they tried to keep this a little hushed up, which is why it didn't gain, as much popularity, why we didn't know about it until we started doing this case. Days pass, then weeks, and all the leads that could have pointed investigators anywhere have dried up. And there comes with that no arrests, and the case like kind of just fades out. There's no massive press explosion where they're like, hey, we're stopping the case. There's not really even any pushback from the public. The case didn't blow up or go wrong in any way. It just goes quiet and is pushed to the side. Eventually, the murders are labeled unsolved. There is no trial, no conviction, and no explanation for what actually happened to these girls. So when investigations stop producing answers, the stories and the hunt for justice don't end, but they drift. And what fills the silence when facts run out? Well, when investigation stalls and no suspects or verdict are ever brought to this, the story loses its actual anchor and facts, and the murders quickly fade away from headlines. However, the house continues to operate as normal. Tenants come and go. These unsolved cases don't necessarily end. Like you talked about earlier, like I guess it's interesting. I don't know if can you think of any like really modern unsolved cases? I guess we've gotten a lot of answers in new cases because of DNA stuff. I'm trying to think of one particularly that like we still are kind of waiting on answers for, that's like a modern thing that hasn't necessarily like mutated out into the craziness that like a haunting would be, that would be surrounding a case.
How modern are you talking?
Let's call it 10, 15 years.
Oh yeah, no. Because I think of like JonBenet Ramsey.
JonBenet was the one for sure that like, but so that's like a perfect example though, right? Like over time, stories shift from like what the actual details of the case are to mystery, and people fill in the gaps with whatever they can to try to make sense of something. Why do we like as people struggle so hard with not having answers to things? Like, why can't we just accept that we don't have the answers and not have to like make up things? Not saying that that's what happened here, but
well, we're sincere. Like most people are sincere and care about people, so they want to hear they want answers and justice for these people.
Okay, that makes sense. That's kind of exactly what happens with this place. Haunting stories about the mansion begin to surface gradually. Now, this doesn't happen right after the murders. We're talking so these murders occurred early 70s. We're into the mid 80s, even early 90s. And these, let's call them hauntings, are passed along as anecdotes where people that are, especially in the next chapter of the house, we kind of get a little bit more of this, but the house starts to kind of develop its own reputation as being haunted. There are sounds that are unexplained. There's knocking, and there's this feeling of presences that are in hallways and staircases. And really, these stories start with people experiencing them, not even evidence of a haunting, right? The oral history of this case replaces the police files and pretty much becomes the reason why the case still holds on. It's proven in court that witness testimony is pretty unreliable, right? So why does personal experience still feel more true than actual documented record? Do we know that? Do you have any insight on that?
I guess it depends on the context.
Yeah.
If you're under a court of law, people lie all the time.
Yeah.
Or when they're in a more comforting environment, they tend to open up and kind of tell you a little bit more of what they actually feel.
I think we also feel as much as we don't want to admit it, more comfortable in our biases. So if you see something that you want to see, you're more likely to perceive it. And it feels more real to you because you already believe that it's there. I think that's kind of where we get to with this haunting thing where the people that are witnessing the hauntings are obviously the people that are open to hauntings, which means that maybe they're a little influenced and biased towards oh yeah, I knew murders. I knew a murder that happened here, and I can tell that there's a ghost standing on this stairway. Whereas someone that didn't know anything about it might not feel the same way.
You've had experiences with ghosts, right?
That's it's tough because I have a moderately bad memory of growing up. I can't say anything that I've dealt with paranormal, I'd say in the last 15 years. I feel like there was some weird stuff that went on when I was younger. We lived in a couple, specifically this one really old house, but I don't know if I can.
Some of the dryer incident?
No. That was the washing machine monster, dude.
Oh, yeah.
No, he was just scary. I was just a kid then. No, we moved into this house that was built. It was 100 years old or something like that. And there was definitely I lived in the basement and, would have weird feelings and stuff like that there. But I don't necessarily know if I ever experienced something. But you have, right?
Yes, I have. And it's something you don't. I wasn't sought it after it. It's just little nuances that I noticed that I was this is something that I didn't do, and I'm by myself. And so that's where I was I kind of noticed that. But it also kind of talks if you want it, if you believe, maybe that makes more sense to you. Maybe that actually could happen to someone that is more open to it.
For sure. Well, that's kind of what I think we're getting at here. So the girls don't get any answers, and no one gets any answers. When we don't get answers as humans, something else always fills that space. And in the case of this crime, the house itself makes a return to the spotlight in the form of being haunted. These ghosts start to give the answers to what the justice system couldn't quite give for these girls. So late in the 1980s, the house is in serious decline. It's subdivided, neglected, and it's at one point officially condemned. Now, cut to 1991, it is purchased by Walter and Julie Keller. Now it is bought for $80,000, which, let's see, my quick math on that. You got your calculator there, dude?
Yep.
All right. What's our percentage? So we have 8,000 square feet divided by 80. I think we're looking at $100 a square foot.
I'm still going.
10,000 a square foot is what we're looking at. No, $10 a square foot is what we're looking at.
That's insane. That's
pretty good money, dude. Just because I've been looking at real estate, stuff like that. I'm like, you start getting mid hundreds on 300, 400, up to 1,000 square foot kind of stuff. Just $10 a square foot is what they bought this place for. That's beside the fact. I'm rambling. So it isn't purchased, though, because of the murders or the hauntings. What it is purchased for is the Kellers realize that this is a beautiful place and it needs to be restored. So for whatever reason, they move themselves into the basement of the Lumber Baron Inn and they start restoring the house room by room over the years. They remove, for some reason, there's like false walls that have been built. And I believe that's what they mean by that is like they took some of the rooms and actually like split them in two and put up these walls so that they could have more like rooms to rent out, these landlords. And then they restore the original woodwork, which is like the cool feature of the house. And to fund this restoration, they take that really creepy third store ballroom and start make it a murder mystery dinner theater. Have you ever done one of these?
A murder mystery theater? I did when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Like in Orlando, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like your mom's been into this stuff. My parents weren't into this kind of stuff, so that makes more sense.
Yeah, we did like a murder mystery dinner in Orlando when we were kids. Because we
want to do one sometime. Maybe I'll go to the Lumber Baron Inn.
I don't think they do it anymore.
Yeah, you're probably right. At that time, it was wildly popular. They were doing 100 shows a year, which I don't know. That seems like a bit. This is the first time that the house is deliberately treated as part of the haunted house story. Now, the restoration is completed and it reopens as the Lumber Baron Inn B&B. And guests are staying overnight. They're having weddings. But the house doesn't make a comeback because of the murders, right? They're not marketing this. Yes, they have the murder mystery theater, but they're not saying, hey, these girls were murdered here. Let's do the story about that, right? They just are buying into like the times. And it comes back in spite of these girls' murders, right? In 2016, though, the property is sold to Joel and Elaine Bryant, and they are the new owners who acknowledge the hauntings openly. They still run it as an Airbnb, but they are the ones who kind of changed the idea from being, yeah, this is a really cool place. It's kind of strange and a little bit creepy. We host B&Bs here. We do these murder mystery dinner fun things in the roof or like in the third floor. But the Bryants are the ones who say, hey, this place is legitimately haunted.
Well, and they also like specifically like Elaine, like it's gone on record and she just like goes to the Valentine suite and she like says hi to Kara and Marianne every day. She's like, I go and I acknowledge them. I definitely know that there's spirits there. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have said that, who is it? It's Elaine and Joel have claimed that Kara and Marianne have definitely been sighted there. There is Amelia Moat, who is the wife of John Moat, who was the original builder of the house. Apparently, she came back because she liked it so much. I don't really know how ghosts do that, but apparently, if you love somewhere, you just go there when you die. There's a couple other ghosts that I'm not sure. Maybe you can shed some light on this. There's a guy named Ben the Soldier and a pipe smoking man. And then I know that there was like a little girl or like there's a girl. I think it's one of those classic like lady in white kind of like situations. Do you know anything about these either Ben the soldier, this pipe smoking guy, or anyone else? Did you catch any of that?
No, I've only heard about the three girls. Like I've heard about Amelia, Marianne, and Kara, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah. There's apparently some other girl who is like the daughter of a fur trader or something like that. And I'm not sure why she's there, but apparently she talks an old timey language. The Bryants amplify this, right? The story going public gets louder and louder, and the house gains national attention. Guests start seeking it out because of the murders. Questions shift from the architecture and the grandeur of the house to specifically the Valentine's suite where Kara and Marianne were murdered.
Mhm.
Paranormal teams start arriving with camera equipment and all these different readers. Do you know? I don't know enough about these. I know you even have some of this equipment, like EMFRs, and I don't know.
It's just like an electromagnetic sensor.
Okay.
It's called an EMT sensor. So basically, what it does is it tracks like electromagnetic frequencies.
Yeah. I should also just let you guys know, if we hit enough followers, me and Jamie can start going and investigating these things ourselves because he has all the equipment already. That's our quick plug in the middle of the episode.
We can also do that without. We can get there. So where are you at?
All right. Sorry. Anyways, so the claims of these hauntings include voices and these like patterns that happen that are tied with the girls, most notably like knocking and stuff like that in the Valentine's suite. I think that at this point, the story jumps from niche to mainstream, and especially when it gets featured on, like we talked about, the critical moment for this show is, or the critical catalyst, I guess I would say, is Netflix's 28 Days Haunted. Now, as we mentioned, the investigators live inside the haunted location for 28 days. Prolonged exposure is supposed to equal stronger communication. Jamie, can you talk really quick, like the focus of these episodes, or like, yeah, I guess let's focus just on particularly like the Lumber Baron Inn, because it does cover 3 different places, but let's just talk about what they focus on when they're in Denver.
So they pretty much just focus on the Valentine suite, and they literally like hold, it's not seance, they do like,
oh yeah,
where they hold on,
they
to
blind themselves and cut off their hearing.
Yes.
But how do they hear things?
Through ghosts.
Through ghost.
That's all I know. And then they have like
are they hooked into those EMFR, like those readings, or like it's radio, right? Don't they like their headphones are connected to radio waves?
They're blindfolded, and they have like an open static communicator is what they have. So basically
that's what it is.
Like picks up wavelengths.
Yep.
And we don't know if it's scripted or not, but
take this whole series with a bit of a grain of salt, I would say personally.
Multiple people in that situation talked to the same people without knowing, and then came up with the same names, not knowing the situation.
Yeah, and then I thought it was really interesting. What I didn't see in a lot of the research I did before, so like I said, I did kind of a lot of research before watching the 28 Days Haunted, and I was really surprised. I don't think we're necessarily spoiling anything. Guys, definitely go watch it. It's a cool documentary. But this evil presence that they kind of find is really, like, I was really surprised by that. Were you surprised, I guess, by anything that's in this? And we can talk more about it at the end, our like full review of this. But this mysterious evil presence, I haven't heard anywhere except for in specifically this documentary.
Really? You don't watch enough ghost stuff then.
I guess that's fair.
There's always an evil presence, and like almost all of them.
Yeah.
This one, I feel like, so the Lumber Baron Inn, I don't think it had like the crazy evil presence like all the other ones did. I think
this
one had more like the girls like showing them the way to help figure out their case.
Yeah, it kind of ends with like a way for they pretty much are trying to tell the girls are trying to direct the investigators on how to help them get released from being trapped at the house. Is that correct?
Yes. So there's that like stoop or that like little hitch,
Yeah,
like underground where they go in.
the little tunnel thing. Yeah, that place is
And
fucking
there's
creepy.
And there's like randomly like a story, like a clipped article of two or of 3 different murders, like
crimes.
Those 2 and one other one. They're like, obviously someone left this here. And that's when I was like, all right.
Same. I was like, all right, okay. This is a little convenient.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that. And they're like, oh, it must be like one killer who lived underneath the hotel or like under the Lumber Baron Inn.
Or lived close. But he knew how to
and
get
access
into that
through
edge.
there. Yeah.
But like, could be right.
Yeah. One of the ladies in the show is also a psychic. Or no, is it the girl that's the psychic, or is it the one guy who's in the chamber or the what do they call it, like suspension?
The girl's a psychic, and they're mad at her because she doesn't want to use
so
her
much drama.
Psychic, and so the other guy in the show gains psychic abilities. This is when I was like,
this show is like I used to watch a lot of it. I really like enjoyed Ghost Adventures because it was like kind of crazy. I have not seen a story that's told like these were told. Specifically, this Denver one was like, I think the Denver one and the Missouri, is it Missouri that they're in?
North Carolina.
That one was nuts.
That one was so good. But I was like, this one has got to be kind of fake.
God, what assholes! Like they at the last scene of the show.
If you guys are if you're faking this, you're assholes. Like, quit doing this to people.
They like cut to him and he's like, giving the camera the side eye when they're talking about whether or not like the spirits are free and if he's like, not possessed anymore. That's totally different thing. Let's keep talking about this. So the psychic, anyways, in the Denver one, claims that he was able to witness the scene where Marianne was pulled into the bedroom and begged for her life, saying that she needed to get back home to her child. Now, we don't necessarily do we get that it's named that it's Marianne, or do we find that like out later?
They said in that's how they found out it was Marianne. It was from that psychic reading.
So there's another ghost hunting show, and I can't remember the name of it, but there's investigators that claim they used a spirit box, which is, I think, kind of the same thing. It's like a static thing where ghosts can talk into it, or like the radio static frequency picks up things. Is that what a spirit box is? Is that what we're talking about?
I assume so.
Okay. Well, anyways, these investigators claimed that not only did they hear the girls say their killer's name, but it happened on multiple occasions across different investigations, and that it wasn't just one voice that said this. It was multiple voices that gave the same answer when they would ask, who kills you? What do we make of a claim like that, dude?
Do they say the name? Do you remember the name? What's the name?
Here's the bullshit about all these fucking shows is that they are withholding the name for the sake of the family because the person is dead.
Such bullshit.
So we don't want to cause any undue stress to the family.
That's lie. So that's definitely lies.
Dude, I'm just saying these are what the claims are.
Yep. I'm just saying that also that's like
it's totally bullshit.
A piece of shit thing to do. Like, oh yeah, we figure it out, but we're not going to tell those families. Or we told the families, but that's it.
Right. But isn't that like such a, like, awesome story though. Like, hey, these girls never got justice, but their ghosts came and gave it to us, and now we know who killed them.
Yeah, of course we want to believe that. That's awesome.
It's fucking awesome story.
I don't know. It would take a lot for me to not believe the ghosts are real.
For sure.
It would take a lot to change my mind.
Right.
Aliens? I don't know. Like,
are they?
Probably not. But like,
you don't believe in aliens? You believe in ghosts over aliens?
Yes, 100%.
Whoa. Interesting. I think I'm definitely the other way around because I'm like 100% convinced the aliens are real. And I don't know. I think ghosts are real, but I haven't necessarily experienced one.
I think ghosts are definely real.
I'm not saying I don't think they're real, but I know aliens are real.
Is aliens.
Yeah.
You know aliens are real.
I know aliens are real.
How?
It just has to be. It has to be.
That's how. So you're no different than me. Okay.
Okay, fair. Same, but different.
Bigfoot doesn't exist.
Are you on record?
Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist.
All right.
Ghosts and aliens.
So I think pretty much what we're doing right now is just talking about all the bullshit that follows around, specifically like paranormal investigations. So I think at this point, what we should do is clarify specifically some gray areas or things that weren't clear in our investigation and in this story that continuously get repeated. We kind of split sources into like official records and modern reporting, articles, paranormal TV, and then break them down into like each separate individual case, right? So we know for a fact, right? These are the facts around the case. Carolee Noche and Marianne Weaver are our two victims. The murders occurred either on October 12th or 13th, 1970. That night. We don't know if it happened before or after midnight. That's the only discrepancy there, right? The case is officially unsolved. We know that Kara lived in the building. We know that Marianne arrived later. And we think we know that she was killed at this scene. It'd be crazy if she wasn't. Everything else around that, though, is pretty much like up for grabs. Why is this core so stable, but everything around it so crazy? Like we don't have to me.
Couldn't tell you, pal.
All right. That's fair.
It's literally like it's beating the dead horse. There's nothing new that we know about it other than what we saw.
Yep. So let's get to one of the bigger ones we keep mentioning. Kara. So Kara is always labeled as a runaway, but that is not the real story. She was not estranged from her parents. In fact, like we mentioned earlier, she had celebrated her 17th birthday just the week prior on October 11th, 1970. She had told them that she wanted to have a change. She was going to go back to school, start a job, and she was moving out of that house or out of her apartment at the lumber mill inn between 2 and 4 days within the time of her murder because she wanted to be closer to her family. The point being, she may have like struggled as a 17-year-old living on her own, but she wasn't a nobody and she wasn't like running away or trying to disappear. Right.
So why do you think they always just label this as a disappear or a runaway instead of a disappearing?
I think because like we talked about, it fits a role really well and it makes for a better story. But I also think that it makes it easier to cover up police incompetence by saying, hey, we don't really know a whole lot of details about her because we didn't do a good job investigating it. Where if they wanted to
run away.
Yeah. Are we doing another soundtrack for this one?
No, just
I think you've only got 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Like where she is not like the investigation just kind of, for some reason, and I don't know why, kind of never really took hold and wasn't taken seriously. So it's really easy to label her as a runaway so that you don't have to know about her.
Also, so they don't have to put any like extra effort into solving it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right? She's like, oh, no one cared about her. She was a runaway.
Like lazy cop shit.
Okay, another issue with Kara is the assault discrepancy. Now, when we told the story, we kind of implied that there was sexual assault, but that is only partially confirmed, right? We have some sources that say that she was sexually assaulted. Other sources say that she wasn't, and some don't even mention it. Now, why this matters is, like we mentioned, it changes how we interpret the motive. If there is assault, it suggests predatory violence, maybe opportunistic or repeat behavior. If not, it opens doors to like targeted, personal, or like situational type motives. So let's consider the fact that potentially if she was sexually assaulted. So Kara's death being intimate, prolonged, possibly sexual, raises predatory violence questions. Now, we're not necessarily saying that it's from a known serial killer, but potentially a violent sexual offender or someone who familiar with vulnerable young women or someone who knew the building or the tenants within. Denver also had, they called him the Denver prostitute killer, who was operating in the mid to late 1970s in Denver, has like from the 70s all the way through the 90s, like 20 something victims, which I've also never heard about this story before. Another part of this that for some reason, maybe Denver's just not a big, maybe people just aren't looking for true crime in Denver. They're trying to go skiing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that would definitely makes complete sense to me that that's someone that would definitely be like linked to this.
Now, there's a couple things because of that. So there's no real link between Kara and she's never been linked to any prostitution or sex work. It's also a bit earlier than the first cases that are attributed to the Denver prostitute killer. Now, early offenses by a serial predator may not be recognized, and the first victims might never be counted, especially if nothing comes of a story, right? Like this just gets swept under the rug, and the serial killer's like, sweet, got away with that, and I'm never ever going to talk about it again. All of that could possibly be the case. It could also be a completely random situation where we had like a potential rapist or something like that. We have a couple like different things, and I think with the sexual predation theory, if that did happen, this is like a really like it's good to look into and consider anyone that was involved with, I would say, like habitual sex crimes at that time. On the other hand, we have the possibility that she was not sexually assaulted. And I was going through Reddit boards looking at this case, and I found a discussion. They were saying that the other theory, if Kara was not sexually assaulted, revolves around her ties to the Smaldone crime family, or Smaldoni, I think it's going to be instead. So pretty much Kara was potentially tied in with the Smaldoni crime family in that she was maybe trafficking drugs or dealing drugs for them. And Kara threatened to pretty much rat. And this is actually coming from a woman who claims to, in Reddit, claimed to be Marianne's daughter and said that her grandmother, who would have been Marianne's mother, thinks that Kara was going to inform, and they took her out because they wanted to silence a witness pretty much. And then Marianne is, again, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, I have zero records or anything other than this Reddit thread to support this, but I did find it highly interesting. But I didn't completely dismiss it. I just wanted to mention it because it shows like what we look for when we can't find answers.
How does mob tie into this? Especially like in Denver? Like,
yeah, dude, the Smaldoni crime family. I've never heard of them either.
But there is a thing that links like unsolved mysteries to the mob. Like almost anywhere you go.
Yeah.
It's like he's sleeping with the fishes down.
I think it comes from the fact that like mob stories are also like classically mysteries. No one ever really like, it's one of those like wink and a nod. No one knows what happens kind of thing. So when people that aren't on the inside are become like tied into these situations, they don't get that wink and a nod. Like, yeah, we don't know what happened to Joey kind of thing. Right. They're like, no one knows what happened to Joey.
He's fine. That makes sense.
Right. I think that's maybe why we get this like organized crime mob ties into these stories that are like mysteries that we can't solve, because it's really easy to also give it some meaning in a place that will obviously never dispute it. It's not like the crime family be like, he had nothing to do with that. We don't kill people. That's not what us crime people do. We just deal drugs.
Smart.
Okay. So going off of that same sort of, I don't want to say that it came from the Reddit thread, but there is some disagreement on whether Marianne was a mom at all. Did you see anything in this?
Not a single lick.
The paranormal people obviously treat it as complete fact, but the official records, I couldn't find anything that said that Marianne had a daughter. If true, it would have, I feel like it should have been emphasized in the reporting from the time, but it really doesn't seem to come up a bunch. Moving on. So across all the different versions, one consistent thing is completely like always true. And that is that Kara appears to be the attendant target. She was alone. She was attacked first, and her death is prolonged. Now, Marianne's death, on the other hand, is fast and seems like it's eliminating a witness. This doesn't solve the case, but it does give us like a really good framing to understand, like, right, if we're doing this as police work, this is how we'd want to look at the crime and say, all right, who's this woman that got shot? Why was it so fast? Who's this woman who was naked, strangled, and stuffed under the bed? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't solve the case, but it does tell the story of how this crime and who may have committed this crime. At the end of all of this, I think we can say that we don't have a name and we don't have a solution, but we do have is like some really important fragments to the story that allow us to maybe understand more than just this really basic, two girls were in this room and they got killed and now it's a true crime story, and then ghosts show up afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. Because once you see this grander story, you get to understand why ghosts and psychics and, theories rush in, because it's not necessarily so much about hauntings, right? But it's what we do when stories don't have answers. At the end of this, we're not left. So the murders remain unsolved. The investigation failed to produce justice, and the girls never got answers in life. People don't just want truth, though. They want a resolution, which is, I think, where this whole paranormal thing comes in, right? Is that kind of what you feel from these, like, especially the 28 days haunted? People are just jumping onto whatever meaning and narrative and emotional relief that they can find, right? It's possible that these experiences are real. It's also possible that they're not solving a crime. These ideas don't necessarily cancel each other out, but it does, the uncomfortable truth is that we most likely will never know who did this. Now, that puts us in a tough situation, and I'm sorry to tell you, listeners, that I don't have the answers. Jamie, do you have answers about this?
No, we don't. We just have theories.
We have a lot of theories.
I'd love to believe that the end of 28 Days Haunted solved the crime, but obviously it did not. If this is like still I think left out in the open, like it
brings up a really good point. Is that like, so the end of 28 Days Haunted has the trio of investigators saying that they solved this thing, right? And what they mean by solved is that they think they found enough evidence to say, hey, there was a serial, I think they say killer, who was operating and had killed lots and lots of people, and that Marianne and Kara were just another of his victims, and somehow he's tied into the lumber baron inn, but his spirit is there, right? It's the one that's always interfering with them when they're trying to talk to Kara and Marianne. But it's not like the other investigations show that says, hey, we have a name of who killed them. We can't release it, right? They don't go explicitly that far, but they just tease you enough to like, do we believe that they got an answer?
I'd like to believe that it was a serial killer.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe there's a little bit of closure. I think that's what everyone wants. I think that's the issue.
That's fair. Yeah, because I guess, at this point, we don't have answers to the crimes, but by the end of this, right, like the girls aren't just victims anymore. They are symbols of, what happens when justice doesn't serve in life. It gets people look for answers elsewhere, right?
Yeah, I think it's nice that there's something else like trying to solve the story.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. So at the end of the day, this isn't a story about ghosts necessarily solving a murder. It's a story about what fills the silence when justice never comes. And that, folks, is the end of the story of the haunted lumber mill inn in Denver, Colorado. Thank you for tuning in. Jamie, take it away. Do your thing, dude.
I don't think that's obviously it's not the end of the story because it's unsolved, but this is what we did. If you have any opinions,
this is our story
or any answers, we
get them in the chat.
Shit out of do it. Like we said, please like and subscribe. If we get to 1,000 listeners, Peter is going to only drink Cosmos.
Drinking Cosmos. Yep. And I don't even like them.
Take us home.
Sweet.
Please stay weird.
Yep. Stay wicked and stay wasted.